Skeleton Crew is the next entry in the Star Wars saga. This looks like a completely new direction to take things. In this video, I'm going to put together all the information that I've gathered that I think is still relevant, but put a big asterisk next to all of this because it could be rumors, assumptions, or misdirections in the marketing. This is a new show that no one on the outside truly knows anything about. I have no special access, just a big curiosity for anything Star Wars. I'll also talk about my personal thoughts, hopes, and fears for this show. The series will debut December 2nd, today at the time of this posting, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern with the first 2 episodes. Going forward, episodes will come out one a week. There'll probably be another double up with the holidays being involved, since one would come out on Christmas Eve and one would come out on New Year's Eve. And there's going to be a total of 8 episodes. Those are going to be airing on Tuesday nights, which is a little strange. I don't know why this moved to Monday. It just happened this past week. Seems a little bit arbitrary, but that's what it is. A quick announcement for the channel here. I will start live streaming to cover this show. It is Imperial Remnant's first live streams. It's actually the first live streams that I've hosted. So it'd be cool if anyone could come out and join in the conversation. My wife and I are going to be sitting down to recap, review, decode, whatever the episodes on Sunday evenings. We don't have a time nailed down yet, but something 5-6 p.m. range would be my guess. We're going to do it on Sundays to give you a refresher in time for the next Tuesday episode. If you can't make it at the time, the live streams will be made available on the channel for rewatching. Skeleton Crew is said to be part of the Mando-Verse. That's kind of the unofficial name of what fans are calling the era that kicked off with The Mandalorian, also brought us the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka. This all connects to the larger Star Wars narrative, of course, but the idea is that these stories are directly connected. The Mandalorian's first season is something like 9 years after Return of the Jedi, but I feel like every time I check on the timeline, it's pushed back a little bit. I thought initially it was 5, and then I remember seeing 7, and now we're at 9. But it's somewhere in that window. I think the timelines are kept a little vague because Star Wars is always going back and filling in blanks and interweaving new stories, whether it's in novels or comics, series, whatever it is. As far as the Mando-Verse is concerned, there were talks from the start that the Mandalorian would spin off a bunch of other series, introduce a bunch of characters, and it would all culminate into a big team-up where they would all take on Grand Admiral Thrawn. The Mandalorian series is over. There will be at least one movie. I mean, supposedly. At this point, any movie announcement I take with a pound of salt. I'll believe the movie's real when I'm in the theater sitting down and it actually starts. I bring this up because Skeleton Crew is focused on a group of kids. It seems a little bit difficult to tie that into a big war with Thrawn and the Imperial Remnant and apparently zombie night witches. My biggest concern here isn't bringing kids into the war. A fantasy series could pull that off to a degree, but having a cast of kids in the ready, fire, aim nature of the Star Wars content right now means that the kids will age quickly in between projects that in-universe should be chronologically closer together. The official synopsis on StarWars.com at the time of this writing, and I specify that because things have changed a lot in the last few months, is Skeleton Crew tells the story of 4 kids searching for their home planet after getting lost in the Star Wars galaxy, and the strange aliens and dangerous places they encounter on their adventure. It doesn't really give us a lot to go on. The trailers we've gotten make it look like a fun and total throwback to the kid adventure movies of the 80s and early 90s. I've seen a lot of people saying Star Wars Stranger Things, probably just because Stranger Things was such a monumental hit for Netflix, but I'm guessing that is not the tone this is going for. Star Wars Goonies, something else that's been thrown around the internet a lot, is probably way more on target. The big question here goes along with my biggest fear of the show. Well, I guess my second biggest fear. My biggest fear is that the show completely sucks. My next biggest fear is that it will be a Star Wars show in name only. I'm all for telling new stories, going in new directions, even trying a new tone, but I don't want it to be a story that if you swap out a handful of keywords, it could just be a generic sci-fi fantasy adventure. I'd like a real solid tether to the Star Wars universe we know without going so far as the kids are inadvertently changing the course of galactic events by themselves. My big fear in that regard would be the kids who are lost end up finding Ahsoka and Sabine, and they're the ones who bring them back to the main galaxy. The show is supposed to take place after the events of Ahsoka's first season and was put in this time period intentionally. It could just be a marketing move. Hey, this is part of the Mando-Verse. You all like The Mandalorian. You all like Grogu, so tune in for this one. Or it could be that there is something to indicate a real connection. The connection could just be in the time period. A galaxy struggling to establish the New Republic, with the Empire, a relatively ragged group of warlords at this time, more in it for themselves than the larger cause, despite what they say in their secret meetings. It could be a matter of the pirates that the Mandalorian Mandalorian faces saving Navarro are around at this point in some fashion. This is most likely the case, with some nods to other storylines, since the series is said to be a smaller, more intimate story focusing on the characters and their interpersonal relationships. I forget where I heard this next bit. It was perhaps in an interview with showrunner John Watts, but the planet the kids are from isn't exactly what it seems. This small clue is my biggest question for the series, as I think it will be the connection to the larger Star Wars universe. Is this planet some kind of experiment? Is it like one of those bunkers on Lost that they found on the island, where everyone thinks they're just living out their lives, they think they're performing these tasks, but the meaning behind them is something completely different? And here's another tangent for you. I've heard and seen a lot of complaints at the idea of people living in suburbs in Star Wars. Oh no. How is this a sticking point? It's an infinite galaxy with trillions of sentient beings made of countless species, tens of thousands of them, and you have an issue with houses being built in lines with roads between them? Doesn't that just seem logical? If every being in the galaxy lived on a moisture farm or on Coruscant, people on the internet would be complaining that it's the same old stuff and they're not doing anything new. Not to mention, the Lars Homestead moisture farm was a real location on Earth. So just because it might be foreign to you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The same way if it's familiar to you doesn't mean that it's wrong. Stop looking for things to complain about and give the show a chance before passing judgment. I know it's a tall order for the internet. The 4 kids we'll be following in the series are Wim, played by Ravi Cabot-Conyers. He's described by official sources as a starry-eyed dreamer who acts before he thinks. He's very enthusiastic, and his impulsiveness leads the group into new or deepening adventures. Ravi was previously in Black AF, which I've never seen, and also had a role in Encanto, which was a pretty solid movie. Neil, played by Robert Timothy Smith. He doesn't have a lot of information available about him. He's a blue-skinned alien that's vaguely elephant-like, and not an alien we've seen on screen before, from what I'm gathering. If I had to guess, he's going to be something of the comic center of the show. Not in the fact that he's going to be the one delivering all the quips and one-liners, but through his naivety and innocence that gets the group into safe enough trouble. He's the one the kids in the audience will rally behind. Robert has some credits to his name, in indie films and some smaller TV roles, but Skeleton Crew will be by far his biggest credit to date. KB, played by Kiriana Crater. KB has some modifications. Perhaps she's a full-on lifelike droid, but I think cyborg is going to be the more accurate answer here. She has a couple implants on her head, and one seems to be linked to a visor she wears over her eyes. My guess is she's the techie of the group, the big brain. Probably misses the jokes due to being very logical and can hack systems and manipulate tech as they need it. Kiriana has been acting for quite a while considering her young age. Nothing I've seen to be able to speak more deeply on, but she has a lot of experience. And finally, Fern, played by Ryan Kira Armstrong. Fern seems like she's going to be very strong and confident. Though Wim is put front and center and even seems to kick the journey off, I think Fern is going to be the standout lead for the audience and also the leader of the kids within the series. If there's going to be any level of romance angle, it's going to be Wim crushing on her, but I am completely fine and hopeful that that storyline does not exist. Aside from Jude Law, Ryan has the most extensive acting resume by a long shot. So based on the few trailers we've gotten, the kids find a ship they think is related to the Jedi. In one scene in the trailer, they pay for something with currency that is said to be from the Old Republic. I think and hope this is the Old Republic as in thousands of years ago, not the Republic of the prequel era before the Empire. I would hope, at least, as the Old Republic is a common term for this very specific era among Star Wars fans, and even has an ongoing, still updated MMORPG of the same name. The 4 kids eventually run into an adult named Jod Na Nawood, played by Jude Law. In the trailers, Jod says he's going to help them get the kids home. I think he wants to just get his hands on those Republic credits. There's also a trailer scene that makes it seem like Jod is Force sensitive. Some speculate that he's a Jedi, another survivor of Order 66. I don't buy it. I think he's a con man, and he's in it for himself. He wants that money. No Jedi association or powers. I think he starts his journey with the kids, just looking to cash in, but softens and eventually does help them, while, of course, still getting paid, but we won't mind by that time because we're going to learn to like him. Jude Law has also said in an interview that his ridiculous character name of Jod Na Nawood is one of his character's names. There's another smaller character that we've got basically nothing on, but I'm pretty excited for his inclusion. SM-33, a droid, clearly part of the show for laughs, is going to be voiced by Nick Frost of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, meaning Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. He's awesome with some serious geek pedigree. With most of the cast being so young with limited bodies of work to go on, it's tough to use that to know what we may be in store for per character. It does suggest the series is aimed at a younger audience, but that's fine by me. I love the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Bad Batch, which were all geared to the younger Star Wars fans. George Lucas has also been clear about the target audience he intended for in every entry in the saga. A couple things that I like most about this franchise is the all-ages storytelling and the clear morals told through this modern mythology. It has been said by, again, I believe John Watts, but I don't have a clip to back it up, that this is a kid-safe show, but not necessarily a kids show. Something along those lines. The official channels have made a big deal about getting the directors who've worked on the series in front of as many eyes as possible. John Watts and Christopher Ford are the co-creators and showrunners. These two worked on the Spider-Man movies starring Tom Holland. David Lowery, who made the amazing and underseen The Green Knight, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schnert, are a directing team responsible for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was one of the absolute best movies of the year it came out. Jake Schreiner, who made Beef, which is a solid Netflix show, not very kid-friendly, but a solid show and it knows how to hook an audience. Lee Isaac Chung, who made the recent movie Twisters. While that movie is incredibly forgettable, it does show that Chung can shoot with some big special effects. Last, but absolutely not least, Bryce Dallas Howard, who isn't just adorable and a fun actress, but a great director and proven her work on The Mandalorian. She also has a great Black Mirror episode about social credit scores, so check that out if you haven't seen it. I did my best to wade through the muck that is the internet to bring you some real solid info on Skeleton Crew. Anything that smelled too much like a total fabrication to be used as clickbait was kicked to the curb. Just to reiterate, the first 2 episodes are coming out today at the time of this posting, December 2nd, 2024, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Subsequent episodes will follow weekly at the same time, but on Tuesdays going forward. As with everything Star Wars, I'm cautiously optimistic and willing to give it a full and fair chance with as much objectivity as I can. I'll be live streaming my Skeleton Crew coverage Sunday evenings to get all the details fresh in your minds before the new episode drops for that week. Check out this video next to dive back into Star Wars lore.